Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jim, and I have a cool knife to share with you. Today it's going to be from WE Knives, and this particular model is called the Falcaria. This is designed by WE Knives, and it runs you right around $350. Now, WE Knives has been around, as we see now, for 10 years. They're celebrating their 10th anniversary. And they have become quite well known for really, really good quality knives at affordable prices. And this one is kind of creeping up there to their highest degree of pricing. In your packaging, you get some cool stickers. See, my goodness, they really give you a lot of stickers now, don't they? Then you have your little come back and let people know you like our product stuff, and a little mini catalog of coming soon knives. Before I get off into the knife, I do want to give a special thank you, if I can, just to take a couple of quick seconds, to Mark, who sent this in to me and let me borrow it. We were having a discussion on Facebook Messenger one day, and he's like, "Hey, I've got this really awesome knife. I'd like to share it with you if you'd like to take a look at it." And of course, I was very interested. And what I love to do is bring out stuff that we don't typically see a lot being reviewed or being talked about. This one's going to be a little bit different because this one has actually gotten quite a bit of coverage over the past few months since it came out in May. This is now the beginning of August. This is a modern to futuristic design. Go ahead and pop it out of here on a really, really big knife. Careful where I put all the packaging because this is not my knife. I don't want to lose anything. Okay. Oh boy. Yeah, that is a big, big boy. Now, a lot of people are going gaga over this knife. And typically I do too when it comes to a nice Wharncliffe. I am a big Wharncliffe fan, as many of you know. And especially when they get to be a more exaggerated design or some sort of modified Wharncliffe, I love to see what people can do with them. Because when you think about it, it's a straight edge blade. There's not a hell of a lot you can do. But if you're creative, you certainly can. And if you go way, way, way back in my channel, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, I want to say, WE made me a really gorgeous fixed blade called the Drone. Called the Drone. And once again, taking a blade profile that you wouldn't think a lot could be done with it, and he stylized it so well. I thought it was one of the coolest, sleekest knives I had ever seen. And I absolutely love the work that he does. So now he's designing knives to have done for production, which is fantastic because now you could take his unique design sensibilities and convert them over into folding knives and into flippers. Let me see if I can get this to rock out from the blade window. So congratulations to him on that success, because this knife is apparently doing very, very well. Anyway, back to what I was saying. A lot of people are really going kind of crazy over this knife, using big hype words and phrases, but I don't see it personally. It's a nice knife, and it's a good knife. But sometimes the wild statements that I'm seeing from people, they're just over the moon for it. Even the video titles, man, like best knife ever and shit like that. Come on, man. Anyway, it really is well done, and it's got a really nice, slicey, thin grind to it that goes up nice and high. So looks-wise, it's great. Materials, it's great. We'll get to that in a few minutes. Construction quality is great. WE is really, really good at their machining processes, their decorative processes, the way that this has been etched, engraved to kind of give you like a lightning bolt look, or yeah, I guess that's probably the closest. That must be what they were going for, was like a lightning bolt look. Really super cool on there. Even the way they did the lock bar relief cut, the way that the pocket clip is styled. It's all unique and it all really comes together very, very nicely. But it's not life altering or brain melting by any stretch. It's just a really nice knife. I think the thing that a lot of people are going to struggle with is the size. Got an overall length of nearly 9 inches here, 8.86 inches to be exact. So this is not a tiny knife. And I think a lot of people are going to get it. And even though they've read the description, they've read the dimensions, it doesn't quite sink in. And boy, is it going to hit you like a sock filled with quarters over the back of your head when you open that box and you open that pouch and you pull this out and go, oh crap, that really is a big, big folder. So I predict a lot of people are going to be flipping this when they get it. They're going to hesitate a bit because it's a really nicely well-made knife. It looks cool. Everything about it is awesome. But there are just people out there that cannot or will not carry a knife this large. I've done it many, many times. I still have a few knives, especially some of my PMP knives, that are every bit as big and bigger that I do enjoy carrying, but they're occasional carries. They're not EDCs by any stretch of the imagination. And when you get into a knife that's this overall large, that can be a big deciding factor for people. Now, WE has always had a reputation for quality machining and great actions at affordable prices. And I was one of, maybe actually the first person to review them back in the day when they were first beginning to ship to the US. And man, I tell you, each release has gotten better and better and better. As a matter of fact, I want one of the new Swift fins, but I don't think WE Knives likes me anymore or something. So I can't even hit them up for a loaner to check out for review. I think the last contact I had with them was over a year ago on the, the Magnetron, which was another really jaw-dropping, cool design, very well-made knife, super slick, amazingly made. Now, one thing I've noticed about this upon playing with it for a couple of days here is the flipping action is nice, but it's not really from a stellar detent. It's from the geometry. The leverage on the flipper tab in relation to the pivot, because you're very simply light switching it. You're giving it a good long stroke, and you're ripping it out yourself. The detent really isn't all that strong, and you notice that when you go to flick it with your finger. You're like, oh, that's really easy to overcome. And it doesn't give you that feeling where you're really pushing up against it and then ripping loose. It's just kind of going. To the point where slow rolling it is super simple to do. So for me, I kind of wish the detent was a little bit snappier. Not necessarily a harder detent, but maybe if it were a flat face detent and it just had that little bit of a hang up where you felt like you were breaking it as it was coming out. I think that would make it a little bit more appealing to me personally. The other thing is the lock bar tension on this one example is a little bit too hard, and it's creating a lot of friction, a lot of drag on that blade. Now, I do want to very clearly state that being able to drop a blade under its own weight is not an indication of quality. but it is something that we use when we're reviewing knives on video to demonstrate to you how smooth an action feels in our hands because you're not here. And I'm not saying that the blade needs to be drop shut. However, it should glide a little bit and it should feel smooth. What I feel on here is I can feel the detent ball really scraping up against the blade, which typically in a WE knife, that feeling doesn't even exist. It just glides. But again, this is merely a sample size of one. Perhaps if I was sitting out here with 10 of these knives, I might feel a variance. Or this may be the black sheep, and 8 or 9 of them may be perfectly gliding smooth. I really don't know. I'm going to lay this off to the side here. Give yourself a nice good look at it while I talk about the specs. Again, as I mentioned earlier, your overall length is 8.86 inches with a blade length of 3.64 inches, which is strange because the whole thing feels huge, but it's really not a huge blade. That blade material, by the way, is CPM 20 CV. Your closed length, 5.22 inches. Yep, it's a big boy. And your blade stock thickness is 130 thou. The overall weight is 5.19 ounces. And aside from the blade, everything on this knife is titanium. You have titanium frame. You have a titanium frame lock. You have titanium onlays bolted onto the frame. Titanium pivot. Titanium hardware. Titanium pocket clip. Titanium raised spine backspacer with lanyard opening. And by the way, that matches nicely and goes in the opposite direction of this kind of dragon spine of the blade. Another design cue that I really, really like a lot. Another thing is this gives WE a really great chance to show off their expert machining. So you've got this nice pocket milled into the frame. And what they've done here is a nice big pocket in the blade. And then they've also created a blade window within that pocket. They've chamfered the edges nicely so it feels a little bit more rounded and comfortable in the hand. So even though you've got a big, brutish knife here in your hands, it doesn't... Yeah, there are no hot spots. I can feel the pocket clip, but it's not an actual hot spot. It's just that I feel it and I recognize that it's there, but it's not poking or digging into me at all. Boy, I wish that relief cut was done just a little bit better. There's so much friction on that blade. And yes, I do believe a micro drop of KPL on the detent ball itself would probably help smooth it out quite a lot. And perhaps Mark hasn't broken this knife in yet. It may be a knife that just sits in his collection, maybe doesn't get carried or played with very often. And it might just be the natural feeling of the detent ball wearing the track into the blade. However, again, going back to prior experiences with WE knives, even straight out of the box, brand new as they're breaking in, you generally do not feel it. Now, is it a deal breaker? If 100% of the ones that came off the factory line were like that, would it prevent me from buying one? Absolutely not. Because I know that that's something that is going to wear in over time. And it is something that I do possibly think can be alleviated with a little bit of lubrication on the detent ball. Now, y'all know I don't believe in lubricating pivot bearings, which this has ceramic bearings, because there's no need for it. But sometimes during braking, you've got to take a Q-tip and put just a micro dot of lube on the detent ball to assist it in its break-in. And I think this one might benefit from that. However, this is not my knife, and I don't know what Mark's maintenance routines are. If he's like me and doesn't ever want somebody to put any oil on his knives, I respect that, so I'm not going to do it. But I bet it would make a little bit of a difference. Anyway, so as I mentioned, this is not the kind of thing that would prevent me from buying it because it's not something that's terribly uncommon in knives in general. For a WE knife, it is. They're so good at their actions. And they're so good at their quality control. It's almost like nothing leaves the factory with any kind of issues. There is Modchek's maker's mark on the back side of the knife. The WE logo is in the pivot. I don't know why. I flipped it over to look over here. I know it's not going to be on the blade. It's going to be on the pivot. And is it marked 20 CV? Let's see. Yes, it is. They did put the blade marking right there, deep into the plunge. I can't recall the last time I saw anybody etch anything inside the plunge, but very, very cool. You've got a really nice finger choil here to choke up on, and they've done a nice job of kind of softening that transition there so you don't feel like you're being sliced into. And there's a nice chamfer on either side of the finger choil as well. And the plunges are done really, really nicely. It comes in deeply. You don't need an additional sharpening choil. You've got plenty of room here before the blade backs up and starts getting thick. That's never a big deal for me anyway, because I know how to sharpen a knife that has somewhat of a thick heel. It's not really a big deal, but there are people out there that are, I sharpen knives all the time, and this is a huge deal. No, just learn how to sharpen around it. It's actually not that difficult. I don't want to say it is challenging, and you do have to learn how to do it. But if you're just using, like, I don't know, sharpening stones on a wicked edge, or you're using water stones, you're on a completely flat surface, and you're not going to be able to change how that interacts with a thicker edge heel. But if you're, working on a grinder like we do as knife makers, it's something that you learn to feather in. And again, if you're grinding a blade, you should know how to sharpen the blades. So it's the same process that we do when we're doing a sweeping plunge. You just do the same thing on the edge. You're not going to actually get an edge all the way back here, but it's going to have a nice consistent thickness to that secondary bevel where visually it looks consistent and there isn't a little square notch back there. Anyway, I just realized that I went way off topic here and off into a whole other realm. I apologize for that. Anyway, so for me, I think it's a solid knife. I think it's well made. I think a little bit of extra care could have been taken on this one particular example to make it perfect. But otherwise, really nice. But it is going to be an acquired taste because of the size. There are going to be people that feel, okay, that's going to be a pocket hog. It's going to take up a little bit too much room in the pocket. Or they don't like to carry a knife that's 5 ounces in weight. And just to let people know, Mark is offering this for sale out of his collection. So if anybody is interested, I guess, well, normally I try not to put people's first and last names out here on the internet that lives forever, unless they've given me permission. But since I do know that he is selling this knife, you probably want to be able to get a hold of him on Facebook. I'll probably type it up here on the screen. And you can reach him via Facebook. He's in a lot of the best Facebook knife groups. And he's a super cool dude. We've done business before, so if he needs a vouch, well, here's a vouch from me live on video. There you go. Anyway, that's it for me on this knife. Thank you again, Mark, for letting me borrow it. I'm going to get it shipped back to you as soon as humanly possible. And to everyone else, stay tuned because I've got cool stuff coming up on all of my channels. For those that don't know, I have revived my watch channel, got more content going on up there. My A to Z EDC channel, where I do everything related to EDC, flashlights, guns, gun accessories, knives, everything goes on that channel. So definitely check them out. There's brand new content coming up for every channel very, very soon.